Hi, everyone, and welcome to Left Unattended, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on what it really means to be neurodivergent in the workplace. I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and together we'll explore the stories that often go untold, like the experiences, challenges, and wins that shape how we show up at work, whether the systems around us were ready or not. Today's guest I have is Diann, and Diann hosts the ADHD-ish podcast. She's also a practicing Buddhist, which I would love to talk to you about, and loves strong coffee, who doesn't? And rescue dogs and laughing out loud. Man, we're going to get along. She's passionate about neurodivergent individuals achieving financial independence through entrepreneurship, balancing their passion with purpose and profit. Diann has also been called the speaker of uncomfortable truths and believes that neurodiversity is a source of creativity, imagination, and innovation. So welcome, Diann. I'm so happy to have you here. And we kind of tripped into each other at a neurodiversity conference this year. And do you want to tell the story about how we met? Because I love it.
Actually, it's classic two ADHD people meet. You and I have a friend in common who I got to know at the conference, and you and I didn't actually get to meet at the conference. So the conference is over. It's time for everybody to go home. I'm in the airport moving towards my gate. You and our mutual connection are also in the airport. I see the mutual connection, go racing over, literally assault him, then turn to you and figure, well, if you're with him, you must be one of us. So I assault you as well. And when I say assault, I mean, I just gave you a massive hug and just immediately started talking to you like we were old friends. And because you didn't push me away and call for security, here we are today.
It's so true. I'm like, here I am hugging you. We've never met before. And it's to your point. It's so true. Like we just go in and we go deep into conversation. We go deep into we are who we are. And we definitely know when we see each other. We don't even have to know each other. We just there's this untold connection. So I absolutely love it. So I would love to talk about, I'm so fascinated, kind of your story about how you got where you are, because you're, from what I remember, a psychotherapist-turned-coach or ADHD coach. And so I'd love to kind of hear about how you got to where you are today. I've always been fascinated about therapists that go coach and kind of the reasons behind that. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. No, of course, I'm glad you asked, because I think a lot of people are really curious about that.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of people are coaches who are coaches think, oh, should I go back to grad school and become a therapist? Or, and so when they see someone going in the opposite direction, they're like, what the actual?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, for me, being a psychotherapist came at the end of a pretty good long career in mental health services. It was a second career for me. My very first career, starting in my 20s, I was in medical sales. I ended up having a pretty serious accident, which left me unable to work for a year. So during that year, I started thinking, well, what am I going to do next? And I did some volunteer work for a family service agency in my community. And they put me in a group for women in abusive relationships. Now, this was the 90s. And I just shudder to think this now. But within weeks of saying, hey, I'm recovering from an accident. I can't work for a little while, but I have some time available. My kids are in school. And is there anything you guys need help with? And they took my history. They found out I have a massive amount of trauma from childhood. They said, well, how would you like to volunteer in our domestic violence program? And I'm like, what do you mean exactly? Within weeks, I was running groups.
Oh, wow.
And doing individual supportive counseling with these women as a totally untrained person, simply because I had a desire and they needed help. Now, there's no way. I just think, oh my God, the liability. But what it did do was give me the opportunity to be of service to others and to use not only my neurodivergent thinking, but my own successful recovery from a really horrible childhood. And I just fell absolutely in love with it. Next thing you know, I told my then husband, hey, guess what? I'm giving up my really lucrative job in medical sales, and I'm going back to school to become a low-paid social worker. We divorced shortly after graduation. But then I spent the next 10 years being a single mom of 3 kids who all have my ADHD. That was a lot of fun. But because I needed to make more money to support my family, I moved up into administration. I was a supervisor. I was running programs, all that, administrator. And then I finally went into private practice. So in private practice, which is my last 7 years of that career, I was mainly working with a lot of women who were in the kind of middle years of life, which tends to be a time when a lot of women seek help, even if they didn't seek help previously. And I noticed how many of them came in with diagnoses of depression, anxiety. Some of them had eating disorders, just lack of fulfillment in life. And I started thinking, what do these women have in common? Well, you know where the story's going.
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize how many of these women actually had unidentified and unaddressed ADHD, and that included me.
Oh, wow.
So I finally got diagnosed well into midlife, even though I wrote my master's thesis in the 90s on whether ADHD persists into adulthood.
Wow.
Because in my observation, it did. And at that time, they said, nope, this only affects a small percentage of boys. They outgrow it by adolescence or early adulthood. I started meeting the fathers of my clients saying, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I wrote my thesis on. And my conclusion was that this is a lifelong condition. We were still years away from recognizing it in women. And of course, I didn't recognize it in myself because I wasn't looking for it. So fast forward, I'm working with a lot of women who have ADHD and we're dealing with other things. And I started realizing as I was getting well into my middle age years that I love helping people and I love helping people with ADHD, but I want to shift the conversations I'm having from talking about problems to talking about possibilities.
Yes.
And that's when I realized you've outgrown this way of helping. You've outgrown being a therapist. You've grown into being a coach. So then I decided to make it official.
That's such an awesome story too. Like, what was it like? I am curious, like, what was it like actually getting a diagnosis that late in life? And looking backwards, because I know for me and a lot of my clients, there's like this mixture of like grief and like excitement, and it's like an array of emotions that comes across. Like, how did that play out for you?
Well, it's kind of funny because it's like on the one hand, you're the last to know.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you are not. So I got a lot of mixed reactions. And, because we are social creatures, we have mirror neurons for a reason. So often we don't really know how we feel about something or how we are responding to something until we kind of share it with someone else and we see how they respond. Yeah. So I finally went to see a child psychiatrist, even though I was clearly not a child, and asked her to assess me.
Oh, so interesting.
And she said, and the reason why I went to see a child psychiatrist is because I know from my experience as a therapist, they have the most extensive training in ADHD. And before you become a child and adolescent psychiatrist, you first have to do all of adult psychiatry.
Okay.
So they know more about ADHD than anyone, and they also know how things play out across the lifespan.
That's interesting.
So I got my diagnosis, and she said, you are really kind of a textbook case of a high-functioning person with ADHD who's very driven and independent and has a lot of frustration and a lot of struggles, but you're very determined to overcome them. So here you are. Well, guess what I did? I took my diagnosis, and I decided to join as a member an ADHD support group. It's a very popular group. It's been going on for years because I thought, you know what? It's time for me to come out of the ADHD closet, claim my place amongst my brethren, and just commune, with the others. Within the first couple of meetings of this ADHD, and it wasn't really a support group, it was a psychosocial skill building, but also support group.
Sure.
Met several times a week. I had people messaging me privately saying, you're not really ADHD, are you? One person even said, so I figured out you must be a journalist who's doing a piece on adult ADHD, right? I'm like, I love your curiosity, people, but I have just as much right to be here as you do. And it was really disappointing,
Yeah.
Ron, because I was like, oh my gosh, it took me so long to get here. And now that I'm here, you want to chew me up and spit me out.
Yeah.
The second thing that happened is I went to my first ADHD conference right around that time. Oof. And now I'm well, first of all, I missed my flight and I was a day late. So there you go. Right. That's classic. Mainly because I was in a conversation with someone about my new diagnosis and I lost track of time and missed my flight. I'm like, this could not be any more ADHD if you tried. But when I got to the conference and I started attending these lectures about the time horizon and other things, I was just like, oh, holy crap. Like, I was willing to accept that this applied to me, but then I actually started really learning about how it applied to me, including the woman next to me, while I'm literally leaning both cheeks off the chair, leaning forward, trying to just take in what the speaker is saying. The woman next to me is fumbling inside her tote bag with all kinds of crinkly papers and just completely oblivious to the fact that she's not the only one in the room. And I was so freaking annoyed. And I thought, Diann, you do that. I had a big old blind spot, let's just say.
Yeah, it fascinates me that we, as a marginalized group of individuals, that we go and then place judgment on somebody that that comes into the group and doesn't maybe fit the way we think that we are fitting in. It's just, I'm so fascinated by the human condition to have oppression thrust upon you and then still be an oppressor at the same time.
But then I turned around and I'm like silently hating on this lady for being oblivious and making a bunch of freaking noise. It's like, I mean, it's really kind of funny because you would think, to your point, Ron, you would think that because we know how bad it feels, we wouldn't do that to others. But let's be honest. There's plenty of gaslighting going on between ADHD coaches and their clients. It's the human condition.
It is. Yeah, there was, I call it the clash of the titans in my house because I have two boys that are ADHD and I'm ADHD. So I've been diagnosed with ASD and ADHD. And my kid's stimming totally irritates my hypersensitivity to sound. And so like I try really hard not to shame them or like have to overcorrect the fact that I can't tolerate their verbal stimming. And I need to like crawl into my bedroom and like get away from it. It's like the clash. That's what I call it, the clash of the titans. Like I don't want to have or gaslight, to your point, like their conditions and have them raised in the way that, we were raised, where we had to hide and suppress and mask and all of those things. And then, I don't know about you, but in my clients, I see that like there's such an erosion of identity that happens over time. And the older we are and we realize it, the worse it is. And so I'm really trying hard to protect my little ones from that same kind of thing. But I notice that I do it. It's like and then I shame myself for doing it when it happens.
Well, self-awareness is only the beginning. You have to follow it up with self-acceptance and some level of mastery. But, when you think about the number of women in particular that are being diagnosed with ADHD well into adult life, often as a result of one or more children being diagnosed, you kind of realize how many parents with ADHD are flying blind and they're parenting children with ADHD and just thinking this kid is oppositional, this kid doesn't listen, this kid is, messy, chaotic, whatever. The blind spot is also applying to them. And I think oftentimes we're hardest on our kids for doing things that remind us of ourselves. It's so unfair, but nothing could be more human. So I think just knowing, like I say, who you are and how you are, and including that in your parenting repertoire, or at least trying to, you're light years ahead of most parents like us.
Yeah. I try really hard to notice when I'm doing it. And then, and then I sit down and have a conversation with them about I was putting my needs upon you. And I just want you to understand why sometimes I need quiet and I want you to be able to express yourself in an area that I need to remove myself from. So it's really hard to backtrack that And just, as we do, we shame ourselves for all of the things that we go through. But so I just think that's fascinating.
I'll tell you what, though, that style of parenting, because you're in the early stages of it and my kids are grown and flown, your willingness and your ability to kind of level with them and say, hey, I know it sounded like I was mad at you or frustrated with you. I was frustrated with myself.
Mm-hmm.
It lays a foundation for having such a good relationship with them as adults. So many people, my generation, their own kids don't talk to them. There are so many people who have literally gone no contact with their parents, including a lot of neurodivergent folks. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is when the parents refuse to acknowledge that they did anything wrong or that they even could have done better. I've had so many conversations with my kids about, if only I'd known what I know now, I would have raised you very, very differently. And so we're really close now as a result of it.
Yeah, I like that. I think that transfers over. I do a lot of leadership work, and we talk about unwanted behaviors, and I'm trying to dispel the myth of the toxic team member, right? And I talk about unwanted behaviors, and I don't know if this psychology matches this. This is my own personal belief. Unwanted behaviors come from an unmet need. And in my opinion, it's an unmet need of not being seen, not being heard, not being validated for their experience, despite it not matching our own, or not being nurtured. And so those are the 4 needs that I've kind of have discovered in my leadership journey of leading teams. But I can sort of see the overlap into that in parenting.
Not everybody would like that comparison being made, but because obviously everyone in the workplace is an adult, and we don't want to treat them like kids or think of them as kids.
For sure.
But it's absolutely a fact that our unmet needs and our unresolved conflicts from childhood are absolutely coming to work with us and will play themselves out. Issues with authority figures, sibling rivalry, I wasn't the favorite one. And, we're not going to go on about that, but we all bring those needs along with us from childhood into adulthood. And you better believe they go to work with us.
Yeah. I could totally talk about that all day long, but I'm curious, what are some of the things that you've noticed about your own life and your own experience of neurodivergence, maybe looking backwards, that you've kind of had to hide from others around you, whether it be the workplace or, because I think what I really want to bring to light are some of the untold stories that the general population doesn't realize the struggles that we carry, right? So what are those struggles that you carried, or as you peeled back the onion of self-discovery?
I think some of the things that I shamed myself for, that I tried to suppress, that I felt very self-conscious about, and I sometimes got called out on, were things I now think of as strengths. For example, I have a high level of energy, enthusiasm, excitement, curiosity, fascination. I love brainstorming, talking about new ideas. But before I knew that I had ADHD and before I was actively working to manage those impulses, I would be known to blurt something out in a meeting or talk over people, interrupt. Because I was excited, I wanted to contribute, but also not because I thought what I had to say was more important or more relevant or more valuable, but because I have a classic ADHD memory problem that is so epic that if I didn't blurt it out right then and there, it would be gone forever. Now, eventually I learned to start bringing a notebook and jotting down my thoughts and curbing my enthusiasm for blurting things out. But I do think there were people who thought, man, she loves to hear herself talk, or she's arrogant, or she interrupts too much. I wasn't even aware of it because I was so excited by the conversation and my desire to contribute to it that I was really kind of unaware that I probably seemed like an ass to some people.
Yeah, I got that too. Like when I went into business with my business partner, I remember like one of the few times we disagreed and we were really deep in conversation with somebody. He's like, "Do you know how much you interrupt me?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't even think I realized." And I don't know about you, but I definitely struggle in group conversations of like, where is that pivotal moment where you interject your part of it? Like people seem to naturally slide in and out without interrupting. And I feel like I'm just watching this volleyball game and I have no idea when to spike the ball unless I steal it from someone else.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good analogy. You're reminding me of something else. Because I don't sit still very well, and I really have a very low threshold and a very low tolerance for boredom. Nothing was more excruciating to me in my nonprofit career or my original, corporate career than going to meetings that seemed to me pointless, redundant, arbitrary. We literally talk about the same thing over and over and over. Decisions aren't made, actions aren't taken. We never move the ball forward. It was so excruciating for me that I would often be doing some version of fidgeting. I'd be doodling. And we didn't have smartphones back then, so I would have been thrown out of the room, I'm sure, for being on my phone. But it's like to help me kind of focus and just even be able to sit there and tolerate these meetings that would just go on and on, I was not present. And of course, that also came across as probably rude or disrespectful. Time blindness is another thing. Not really realizing, always if I wanted to do something, I was going to do it, but I wasn't always very realistic about calculating how long it would take.
Yeah.
So I would overcommit. I was on, so many projects. Anybody needed help? Sure, I can help you. So overextended, and then not getting enough sleep because I had to stay up late to do all these things. Meanwhile, I'm feeling oppressed and exploited. Girl, you volunteered for all of it. You didn't even give anybody a chance to ask.
I feel like you're talking to me right now.
But guess what?
Yeah.
That earns you a reputation as not being a team player.
Yeah. Oh.
And while I often had really good performance reviews because I was very productive and very driven and often made significant contributions, the fact that I was seen for all these reasons as not a team player, it definitely hindered my ability to move into higher management because they were looking for someone who was more balanced in that way than I was. And that was part of the reason why I decided to go out on my own, because you know what? I am probably better on my own than I am being a team player, at least by those definitions.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you say that because I can see that so often. I talk about universal design and how we should be questioning the system and revamping the system. The inherited systems no longer work from 50, 100 years ago, but we're still operating on these old inherited systems. But yeah, I see that. It's like, what does the system praise, right? Speed. They praise productivity, which is on one level how I've succeeded in my career so much, and on the other hand, but it's also not the same way they want me to communicate, or the same way they want me to be in a team. Because if my team is not interested in doing the thing, I'm taking it on and taking it away. Like
yep.
Just move out of my way. I can get this done.
Right. You know what? Which people will perceive as arrogant.
Yes.
But it isn't. What else I think is misconstrued is that we are very justice sensitive truth tellers. Yes. And so I not recognizing the origins of that and also recognizing really how political one actually needs to be to thrive in most organizations. I was much too honest and much too direct for most workplaces. I think maybe people quietly respected me, but they didn't necessarily want to say so in public. What happened so often, Ron, is coming out of a meeting where something was being discussed. And it seemed like so often, and you will absolutely get this. It seems so often that we were just talking around a problem. And I was thinking to myself, am I literally the only one here that sees the emperor has no clothes? Like, this is perfectly obvious. So I would say, well, I don't know why we're still talking about this. Why don't we just X? And I would just say what to me was absolutely the obvious conclusion of what we should be doing instead. And literally every head in the room would turn. And I'd turn, look behind me, because I'm like, what? You know, what are you looking at? And what would often happen is then the whole thing would get shut down, and they'd say, well, thank you for, nobody ever thanked me for speaking up. That was never a problem. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And then I'd leave the room and I'd be like, uh-oh, what just happened? 2 or 3 people who were at my level would come later in the bathroom or to my office and say, I loved what you said in there. And it took me a while to catch on, Ron, but I finally said, then why didn't you speak up then and there? And I realized, being a person who's a systems thinker, who can cut through the BS, who recognizes what to me seems like obvious. That's why I got this nickname, the Speaker of Uncomfortable Truths. I didn't give it to myself, by the way. One of my favorite clients when I was still in Los Angeles gave it to me. And I said, oh, I received that. I love that so much, because I'm finally at a point in my life where I've accepted that that's who I am, but it did not make me popular in most organizational settings. I was seen as a potential troublemaker.
So I work a couple days in the clinic per month. And I just moved locations because the location I was originally at, I kept like seeing all the flaws in the system, where it's like, this could be better. And why do we do it this way? Because I don't understand. Like, there was a coupon method. It just like didn't make sense to me. Like, help me make this easier, because this is such a complicated, complex way about going about something that should be very simple. Right. And it's like, I love efficiency. And, you know, when I point out problems all the time, the impact of that becomes, I'm a very negative person. I'm a shit stirrer. I'm just, looking for problems. I'm just looking for ways to complain about the company. I was like, no, I'm looking for ways to make improvements. And you're not hearing what I'm saying. You're focused on the problem.
So true. And also, I think I have always been, I like to say now, I used to think I was naive. But that's not really true, because I have pretty astute awareness about many things. So naive it's not quite accurate. I think what's more accurate, Ron, is idealistic.
Yeah.
As many neurodivergent people are. So I actually thought, because I was working for organizations that had in their mission statement that we're progressive, we're diverse, we're democratic, we're forward thinking, we're cutting edge, blah-de-blah-de, that they actually meant it. So when I was coming up with disruptive, original thinking, and instead of thinking, hallelujah, tell me more, people were clutching their pearls and clucking their tongues. And I was like, wait a minute. You say you're forward thinking and cutting edge and why do you want to just keep doing more of the same? I don't understand.
Yeah, for me, the core value was trust, transparency to a fault, which is like I align really well with these values of the practice. The overall corporation, I really enjoy this particular location, despite the core value, just did not appreciate transparency to a fault. And I was like, but this is supposed to be who we are, right? And so it just wasn't appreciated. But now I'm at another location. Things are amazing, and I love it, and they're appreciated when I bring something up. But it's to your point. Like, I take that literally. If you say we're progressive, then I am going to think and give you progression. Right?
I now warn people. Maybe it's not warning. When someone asks my opinion, instead of just, oh, goody, and just believing they actually want it and giving it to them, I will usually hit the pause button, because I've had considerable experience with being asked my opinion, and then I see a look of shock and horror coming in response. I say, how deep do you want me to go? Or why are you asking me in particular? Or are you sure? Depending on who it is. Because I will tell you, I'm extremely direct, and I will tell you as much as you want to hear, need to hear, and can tolerate hearing. So I really need to know that first, because I no longer assume that when someone asks my opinion, they're actually here for it.
Yeah. I worked at one place that would always ask me my opinion and would get really upset with me when I shared it. And so finally, I had to preface with, do you actually want the answer of the question you're looking for? Like, you don't seem to like my answers, but yet you continuously ask me. But like, are you sure you're ready for the answers of the question?
It kind of feels like a game show. Like they ask you, you answer, and then they keep looking at you. And I feel like they're going to say, is that your final answer? Like, you want to try? I mean, I that's all I got. Like, if you want something different, you got to get someone different. Like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to dumb it down. I don't know. And part of it is like, you do really realize that, and I do not like the term superpower.
I'm on the
I
fence.
Just don't like
I'm 50-50 on it.
Yeah, I just don't like it. I think only because when you claim ADHD as your superpower, that can be deeply offensive.
Yes.
To so many people whose lived experience of ADHD is excruciatingly painful, difficult, and frustrating. So I appreciate that we have strengths and we have struggles.
Yep.
And I realized that one of the strengths you and I evidently both have is the ability to perceive something, that could be made better and get a thought about how to close the gap between how it is and how it could be. This is where I think the visionary part comes in. Like, I can't help myself. I go into somebody's house and I'm looking around and I am no interior designer. I am no makeup artist. I don't even know how to cook. But I'll tell you what, any place I go, my brain instantly goes to how this could be better. And I have learned, Ron, to STFU 90% of the time because it's not welcome. And by the way, it's like I got plenty of things in my life that could be made better that I'm not attending to. So who am I after all? But it is a quote unquote superpower that is unwelcome in most workplaces. And I think that's a tragedy. Yeah. Really.
Well, I think that's the problem with the superpower thing is most of the superpowers you get shamed for having.
Yes.
Right? Or, and I don't want to diminish someone else's lived experience for their struggles and how it has impacted them, but I have a hard time when somebody feels like it's their superpower. I don't want to piss in their Cheerios.
Yeah.
Like if you feel empowered to say that, I'm going to let you say it. Do I feel like I have superpowers at times? Sure, but it's not probably how I lead and talk about ADHD or
I mean, it's just, well, you know how we get obsessive, right? I either say we're obsessed or we couldn't care less, and it just, I'm just kind of fixated on that word superpower, but it's not the hill to die on. I just prefer strengths and struggles in equal measure.
Yep. I like that. So speaking of, so we talked a bit about struggles through here. I wanted to know, like, what are some of I think you just named a few through the story, but like, what are some of the big strengths that you have found about yourself over the last, last several years of self-discovery?
I realize really how much of my personality really has been shaped by my ADHD. And that might seem patently obvious, but I think starting from being a little kid, I was adopted. I was adopted into an abusive family. It was like just a really strange setup. And so I noticed from such an early age, I'm different. I'm like Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the others, and I am that thing. But I kept applying different attributional theories. Oh, it's because I'm adopted. Oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because of the abuse. Oh, it's because, and it took me so many years to get to ADHD. And I don't know why I was running from it so hard. I mean, but maybe I thought I was outsmarting it somehow. I mean, I do remember thinking that passing for normal, what I used to call passing for normal, was a flex. And now I realize what makes you different makes you special.
Yeah.
And when you can lean all the way into that and say, I have a terrible memory, and I hope that never makes you feel harmed.
Ooh.
I couldn't say that years ago. I was so self-conscious about my absolutely awful memory that I would either change the subject, deflect, deny. Like, I literally could not take responsibility for forgetting so many things that were important, especially when I saw that it hurt the other person. I am not proud of this, Ron.
Oh, yeah.
I am not proud of this at all. But I finally reached a point after all those years of feeling like your memory sucks. And sometimes you're late for things. Sometimes you forget things. You volunteer to do something for somebody, and then you have no memory of it. I mean, I would host entire business meetings and then completely forgot that they ever happened. Like, I understand attending and forgetting, but hosting? Like, I literally thought, do you have a brain tumor? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But now, in these last few years, when ADHD has become, some people joke it's my whole personality, I finally allowed myself to really accept just how much of my personality it touches. Now, when I meet someone new who isn't ADHD, and I'll say, and this actually happened, true story. I met someone, we hit it off. I knew they were not neurodivergent, but I said, I really like you. And they said, I like you as well. I said, I think we could become friends for sure. And they said, I sure hope so. And I said, but I want you to think about this. And it's okay if it's a deal breaker. I have literally the worst memory on the planet. You will tell me a painful story about how you just lost your parent or your dog or your job or whatever. And the next time I'll see you, I'll be like, how's it hanging? What's new? And you will think, what an a-hole. But I promise you I'm not. And it will crush me when I find out.
Yeah.
But if that would just be a deal breaker for you and you could just not forgive me, let's just say this was a nice meeting and go on our separate ways, because I would never want my memory to harm you.
Oh.
And I thought, you know what? That's what being a real grown-up means, because it took me all these years to get to the point where I say, this is what self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-advocacy look like. If you're going to be my friend, here's a possibility.
Yeah.
You still in? And I wish I had learned that so much earlier, especially at work, because I think the things that I was not able to take ownership over, communicate, ask for accommodations or forgiveness, really absolutely hindered me and probably affected the way people thought about me.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm sure of it.
As you say this, I'm reflecting on some of the things that I do with my own team right now, because I always say, like, oh, I have the worst memory, or like, my brain is mush right now. Can you give me a primer? Right? I'm like, where were we when we were talking about that? Or was this conversation in person, or was it over text? Or where did this communication happen? Like, I need a primer to get to the memory. Like, the distance between me and the memory is a little too far. I need a primer. And
like, hum a few bars, maybe I'll remember the song. That's what I have to say.
But give me the primer, and I promise I'll remember. I just need the primer to get there.
And you know what I love? You know what I love about this, Ron? Is that, honestly, and in the workplace, and I hope people listening don't take this the wrong way, but nobody cares about your ADHD.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that to be the reason why you dropped the ball, let them down, missed the bus, like whatever. But you don't, even if it's not appropriate or you don't want to do it, you never have to disclose your ADHD, but you can still communicate your needs and bridge the gap between how you function and communicate and how others communicate and function without ever saying those 4 magic letters. And you just demonstrated it. You just said, oh, got the worst memory. My brain's kind of mushy right now. I often say, Hum a few bars. I'll see if I can remember the song, or I'm getting the music but not the words. Can you throw out another couple lines? I use humor a lot to kind of ease the tension when people are like, don't you remember? But you don't ever have to disclose your ADHD if you choose not to, or if it's not safe to do so.
Agreed.
But saying something like that, wow, it's almost like I was there, but I wasn't. Fill in a few details. I've even used this analogy because I love analogies. It really helps people understand us better. I say, I kind of remember, but I feel like I'm looking at a Polaroid picture that hasn't fully developed yet. Can you give me a few more details?
Ooh, I like
and
that.
then they'll be like, okay, you were wearing that orange shirt with the gray collar. You were sitting with a bunch of books behind you. And we were talking about, oh yeah, and your dog came in. And you're like, all of a sudden, your brain's able to go. Yeah, all of a sudden you can catch the memory.
Yeah.
And ADHD wasn't even mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've been doing that for a long time before I even knew. I was like, where were we when we were, like, I was just asking questions. And what I hate about it, it's like the flip side of this, and the shame that comes in the background of that is I always have to keep in the back of my head that I'm wrong first. Like, oh, I have to believe that this happened. That like, I can't question the fact that, like, did that actually happen? I automatically assume that I don't remember first. Right? Mm-hmm. And then when that happens and that truth comes out where I didn't remember, that's for me is like the delayed processing of shame, where it's like after the conversation has happened, it's like, oh, it's another time I didn't remember.
The delayed processing of shame. God, that feels like a great book title. But you're right. In order to, I think of it as like taking radical ownership or radical responsibility for ADHD. That does not mean accepting a permanent one down position. It's kind of looking at the statistics over your lifetime, the number of times that you actually forgot versus the times you were told you forgot when you didn't. My money's on the fact that you probably forgot. So if you just assume 100% of the time, that's my default setting, I forgot, help me out. Every once in a while, you'll be letting someone gaslight you. Every once in a while, you'll be taking responsibility for something that is not your responsibility. But you'll also be desensitizing yourself to that chronic shame in the process. And that is the win. Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a lot of years and it still hasn't happened.
Oh, well. I got a magic wand. If you got a minute, I'll go look for it. You can lean forward, touch your head to the screen. I'll tap you with it.
I'm going to bottle that and sell it.
Actually, humor.
Yeah.
Humor is what I found. Yeah, it still hurts.
Yeah.
But humor soothes me faster and helps me get off the rumination and on to the next thing better than most other things.
I think to your point, right, that delayed kind of shame isn't as powerful, but it's still like that moment of like, oh, it was another one I forgot, right? It's like, it doesn't hurt. It's like a paper cut rather than a stab wound to the gut, but it's always still there. I don't think that part ever goes away. It's like the shame reminder.
Ron, you said something just at the beginning when we were getting started.
Yeah.
And you introduced me as a practicing Buddhist, which I am. And somebody said, you're a Buddhist? You swear a lot. And by the way, I'm really proud. I haven't sworn once on this podcast. But I do. I'm okay, that's all right. It's your show. I'm pretty sweary. I'm pretty sweary on ADHD-ish. So if anyone wants to hear me swear, come over there. But
go check her out.
They said, you kind of swear a lot for a Buddhist. And I said, oh, you can just think of me as a profane Buddhist. Is that a good handle? I made it my Reddit handle. But listen, this is the reason I'm bringing it up, is that one of the things I love so much about Buddhism is equanimity. Yeah. And as a person with ADHD, the practice of equanimity that I am working towards one day at a time, one moment at a time, is to accept life as it is without resistance. And that means accepting who I am, my embarrassment, my shame, my memory problems, all of that as it is. Maybe it's not a stab, maybe it's a paper cut, but I accept it because that is the reality of this moment. Do I wish it was different? Yeah. Will it be different in the future? Maybe. But even if it isn't, I can practice the equanimity in this moment of just saying it is what it is right now.
Yeah. I think what I love talking about it is the people who don't understand what we go through and have that like, well, it's not a big deal, right? Well, it's like, think about the 10,000 paper cuts that happened today. Like at the end of the day, that's a huge bleeding, gaping wound, right? That's what I think, that's my takeaway that I want the world to have sometimes. And then kind of as we wrap this up, I'd love to know, like, if you could share with the world one tidbit about your ADHD, what would that be? What would you want them to know that they may not know about?
About me in particular?
Yeah.
I'm not as strong as you think, but I have a good cover story. And if you think, well, I've had people tell me, oh, you're having a lot more fun with ADHD than I am. I say, that's the cover story. It's not the same as the mask.
Yeah.
It's that I'm more selective about who I allow to see my vulnerability and how much I still hurt. But I think a lot of people just assume when you're high functioning with ADHD or ADHD that you don't hurt.
Yeah.
We hurt. We still hurt.
Yeah.
We just may not be sharing it as openly as others do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think you and I could probably talk forever and ever and ever. Like I will probably stop this podcast and talk to you for another 2 hours if I could. But I just want to thank you for coming on. I just really appreciate you being here. And I look forward to being on the ADHD-ish podcast. And if you haven't heard the podcast, go check her out. We'll have the link in the show notes as well. So thanks again. And we'll talk to you soon.
If I ever see you in an airport again, I'm coming for you.
Come on, bring it.
You've been warned. You've been warned.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Left Unattended. A huge thank you to my guest, Diann Wingert, for sharing her stories. We could have talked for hours. And of course, thank you to Dustin Bays for editing and making sure this episode sounds as good as it feels. If today's conversation resonated with you, let's keep the connection going. Join my newsletter for weekly insights on neuroinclusive leadership, synapt.me/newsletter. That's syn-apt.me/newsletter. Learn more about coaching with me at coaching.syn-apt.me. And finally, if you've enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more people find these conversations and reminds the world that belonging isn't a luxury. It's a leadership strategy. I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and this has been Left Unattended. Until next time.